I was told to deliver this message.
Something like a family. It's your brother Landon X. This is NationTownTV Live. And today we're going to deal with critical race theory. One side says they're for it. Another side of the spectrum says they're against it. And it's been the topic of a lot of political discussions. And I'm going to be honest with you, I might make both sides upset with my take on it. We're going to deal with the fact that critical race theory is really a myth. Let's get it.
Rio.
Something like a family. Again, it's your brother Landon X. This is NationTownTV Live. Shout out to the YouTube family. This is our second live broadcast live on YouTube. Shout out to the YouTube NationTownTV family. Like I said, this is going to be the home of NationTownTV, the headquarters, I should say. From here on out, man, we basically divorced Facebook. We still active on Facebook, but this is the headquarters right now here on YouTube, until we gotta divorce them too. But anyway, let's get down to it. Today we're talking about critical race theory. I've been kind of marinating on this topic for a while. I wanted to really give it some thought before I jumped into it. But one thing I didn't have to do with this topic is think too long as it pertains to the actual name. They say what's in the name? Well, if you actually look at the name and what it's called, it speaks for itself, and you can go deeper if you will, and that's what we intend to do here on NationTownTV Live today. We don't intend to be on long, but we do intend to be on strong. Shout out to everybody chiming in. Make sure y'all hit us with your questions and comments, but let me start off in the proper fashion. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful. I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, who appeared to us in the person of Master W. Fard Muhammad, the long-awaited Messiah of the Christians and the Mahdi of the Muslims. Man, I love saying that because it's so true. I further bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. But on this beautiful Eid al-Adha, I must bear witness that when the Holy Quran says that certainly a messenger will be raised for every nation, it's not disrespecting Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So neither am I. I love and thank Allah every day of my life and every other day that he gives me for Prophet Muhammad ibn Abdullah, peace be upon him, for his revelation of the Holy Quran, which set off a cultural and psychological and academic revolution throughout the world through Islam. I thank Prophet Muhammad for that. However, the Holy Quran was very clear in Surah 16 and 36 and Surah 10 and 47 when it said that certainly a messenger would be raised for every nation. And then in Surah 44 and 5, it says, we are ever sending messengers. And it also goes into more detail saying that that messenger would speak the language of that people and the messenger that fits that description. They always talking about a black man fitting the description of a thing. Well, Prophet Muhammad, he fit the description for that time and his people for what his mission was. But in this time and for this people and for this dispensation in this nation, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad is the one that fits that description. But how do I even know about the most honorable Elijah Muhammad when they say that he departed from us several years before I was even born? How do I know about Master Fard Muhammad when they say that he departed from our midst several decades before I was even born? I know about these two great men because there's a man in our midst today that bridged that gap. And if it be the will of Allah, I pray that every day I'm getting closer and closer to closing the gap between me and this man. And the man I'm speaking of is none other than the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And in those three great names, I greet the NationTown family with the words of peace. We say it in the Arabic language. Assalamu alaikum. Shout out to the whole YouTube family. Hit us up with your questions and comments. I see you. We got a little bit of new technology. So when you hit us with your questions and comments, if we actually highlight your comments, you're going to see it on the screen. So if you want to get put on blast, if you need your shine, go ahead and hit us with a question or comment. We're going to put it on the screen and we're going to also deal with it. So shout out to the whole Nation Town family. I love y'all. And of course, y'all got to subscribe. If this is your first time seeing NationTown TV, then I understand. You're a little slow to the party. That's all right. But you're here now. Go ahead and subscribe. Hit that bell so you can get all of the updates when we go live and when we have new content. But man, if you've been just kind of hanging around Nation Town, just visiting, just taking vacations in Nation Town, man, what's wrong with you? Go ahead, pack your bags, come on down to Nation Town and subscribe. Become a Nation Town subscriber on YouTube. We're still on Facebook. We're still operating. Even though they got us on the Facebook, what they call a shadow ban, meaning that even though we got about 8,000 followers on Facebook, it should be twice that at least. But they're kind of squeezing and bottlenecking the amount of people that can see our content on there. So we just building up the next space, and that's why we here on YouTube. But again, shout out to everybody chiming in. We're going to get right to it. And of course, don't forget, the only way we're able to broadcast at all is from the love and the gratitude of our viewers and followers. Hit us up, show us some love. $ Nation Town. You can leave off the TV. $ Nation Town. Show us some love on Cash App. Shout out to all of our contributors so far. Shout out to Brother Hakeem. I see you. Much love, dear brother. Show us some love. Keep in mind that a portion of all of the Cash App donations go to our meal and a message program better known as, I should say, the Yes Ma'am program. That meal and a message where we deliver meals to our people, the same kind of meals that we eat, as well as PPE products, fresh fruits, that famous, world famous bean pie and bean soup, wheat bread, just as the most honorable Elijah Muhammad prescribed it. He is, of course, a doctor, if you understand in the spiritual sense. But let's get down to it. I'm not going to hold you too long, but I do intend to hold you strong. We are dealing with this critical race theory. We gonna ride this out. We're gonna ride this out. We're gonna ride this out real quick. Critical race theory. What does it really mean? But also, is it a myth? Now, that's a statement that you see over there. Critical race theory is a myth. Now, this is NationTown. I don't know what else you watching on YouTube. I don't know what else you going through or what you watch and what you consume. But on NationTown, as a follower of this man, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, as a Muslim, I am absolutely, it behooves me and I'm actually duty bound to prove the things that we say. In fact, as a Muslim, anything that we say should be able to be proven in no limited time. So that's not just something to catch your attention. It is a little bit, but that's up there for a reason. That's the title because I'm going to prove that it's a myth and it's not what you think it is. But like I said, when we opened up, what you see with critical race theory is this argument that's building up. It's really a political argument. But of course, whenever either one of the political parties wants to gain ground, they always use some type of demographic or some group for hot button topics. And then oftentimes they're successful in kind of tricking that group into thinking they really care about them, or tricking their own base into thinking that they're really against that particular group. So what we're going to do here, we're going to break down why we believe that critical race theory is indeed a myth. But first, let's get into what the so-called definition of it is. What I find really interesting about critical race theory and the way it's been thrown out there is that the definition, very few people, you would think that when people talk about it so much that people would really have an idea of what it's supposed to be or what it's not. But when you watch these talking heads on MSNBC and Fox News or whatever, they're really operating off of what they think it means and not what it actually is supposed to mean. But I got to warn you before we go deep into it. Critical race theory itself is very much made up. It's not, we have this habit of when so-called scholars and intellectuals come up with something. And then it's, especially if it's co-signed and hailed by Caucasians, we just automatically take it as gospel. We take it as 100% real, 100% respectable, even if we disagree with it. But I'm here to make the argument that it's not even worth dealing with or talking about. But we're going to go into what it actually means. Shout out to everybody chiming in. I see you, brother Muslim Muhammad. All praises due to Allah. Wa alaikum salam, dear brother. And again, Il al-Adhad to all of my Muslims out there. That is a celebration of the 10th day of the Hijrah of the Hajj. That's also showing gratitude and love to the friend of Allah. According to the scripture, Allah really only had one true friend, one real homeboy, and that's Abraham. The same Abraham of your Bible is in Arabic is pronounced Ibrahim. He proved that he was a friend of Allah through the almost sacrifice of his son. So that's one of the things that they bear witness to on this celebration day. So Eid al-Adha to all of the Muslims throughout the world. Shout out to them. Shout out to my brother, official MNIB. Wa alaikum salam, indeed. Eid Kareem to you, dear brother. Let's get into it, family. Let's deal first and foremost with what the same clowns that, and I gotta call them clowns, and you're gonna understand why I'm gonna call him a clown, why I call him a clown by the end of this video. I'm gonna try to make this quick, at least quick by NationTown terms. I really don't want to go past an hour, but I'm gonna break this down as quickly as I possibly can. But let's be fair and let's go over what they say, what they portend, what they put out there as critical race theory. According to these clowns, Critical race theory is a body of legal scholarship and an academic movement. Boy, I tell you, it's a lot of red flags already. Of civil rights scholars, and activists, oh boy, in the United States that seeks to critically examine U.S. law as it intersects with issues of race in the U.S. and to challenge mainstream American liberal approaches to racial justice. Now, if you are your typical Negro in America or throughout the diaspora who gets so heart warmed and touched every time a liberal Caucasian or one of the most liberal side of the government, wherever you live in the world, when they just pat the darker people in their country over the head, when they throw you a fried piece of chicken and a biscuit, you just feel so special. If you're one of those people, critical race theory really makes your ears perk up. And you feel like you've been told over the last 3 to 6 months that this has been a hot topic, that this is something that you should fight for, that this is something that is worth arguing with anybody about. I'm here to tell you, it's just not. Why is that, Brother Landon? Why is that? Now, before I go any further, I got to let the people know, because you got people who are MSNBCologists. You got people that are Fox Newsologists. You got people that are NPRologists who are all over the internet, and whenever they come up with some new political term or new hot button topic to argue about nothing about, people believe that they're experts on it. So I know all about interest convergence. I'm not even going to get into it. I agree with the overall idea of interest convergence, which basically just says that white controlled governments don't give a damn about the issues of darker people unless they can also benefit from it. Well, that's what happens when you are willfully a part of the white man's world. Emphasis on the words willfully a part of it, and you're not seeking separation. You have to fall under what helps them. If it don't help them, they don't have no reason to work with you. So I get all of that. So it's going to sound like to somebody who's got a black and white political mind that, if you're not 100% on our side, then you must be on the other side. No, 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 no. You're going to find out that neither side is worth being on at all. So let's get into it. Shout out to everybody chiming in. I see you. I see you, family. Make sure y'all hit us up with your questions and comments. Like I said before, all questions and comments, as we see them, we will bring them on the screen, just like you see right there. All praises due to Allah, to our viewers. But let's get down to it. First and foremost, I don't want to keep you waiting too much longer by describing why I feel like that this is really a silly topic. It's really something that is not arguing. And I'm gonna give you an analogy as to why. You may have, and I just want you to follow me on this. You may have noticed a story that popped up in the news while everybody was arguing about critical race theory, seriously arguing. Some of you may have been laughing about another story that popped up in the news a couple of weeks ago. That was a brother. Oh man, there was a brother who decided to represent himself in a murder trial. And it's not a laughing matter at all, because he actually murdered his ex-wife as well, I believe his daughter, and also stabbed his son. And this brother decided to represent himself in court. And there was video footage of his opening statement that went all over the news. But what I found interesting about it, and you probably wonder, what does this have to do with CRT, with critical race theory? Because while you watch this video, you probably were laughing at this dude because there's no logic in what he's saying. But at the same time you were laughing at him, you probably had a serious discussion about critical race theory. But I'm here to say that everybody that's arguing about critical race theory and NationTown TV, we're not arguing about it. We just dropping a statement on your head. You can take it or let it alone. But everybody that's arguing about critical race theory, you look as foolish as this brother right here. Pay attention. He's representing himself. And I've got to give you a couple of caveats, a couple of things to pay attention to. First of all, they have video footage. His own son testified against him. The son that he also stabbed. He tried to cross-examine his son. There's DNA evidence. There's blood evidence. There's multiple witnesses. Listen, this brother, they just gave him his day in court just because technically that's the law here in America. But listen to this brother and the passion that he argues with.
And the evidence is going to show that law enforcement tampered with evidence to meet their such high burden of proof. Because originally, it wasn't enough. So we had to tamper with evidence. Since it was such evident already, but we still had to tamper with evidence.
But again, he seems so serious, don't he? He seems so dead serious. He really think he got a case. But if you watch the even longer video of it, he admits that they have him on video committing the crime, but he thinks he's innocent because, or not guilty, I should say, because they didn't quite document the crime exactly the way he did it. Like he stabbed 9 times instead of 10, that kind of thing. I mean, the brother's 5150. He's obviously not all the way tied up between the ears, but laugh as you may at him, that's how silly the critical race theory looks. And I'm going to get into exactly what I mean on that. But shout out to everybody chiming in. I see you. I see you, 99 Al Fali, Joaquin, peace to the gods. Absolutely, dear brother. Brother Jabril says, I'm on the side of Allah, his messenger, his Messiah, and all the righteous saviors that he said he would send us. I know that's right, dear brother. All praises due to Allah. Brother 99 says, how can I purchase a sweatshirt? Brother, just go to NationTownStore.com. Thank you for the reminder, though, dear brother. I forgot to shout out. That's the mothership right there, NationTownStore.com. Go to NationTownStore.com. All of that's available on there, man. Shop till you drop, dear brother. All praises are due to Allah. Shout out to everybody chiming in. All praise due to Allah. And definitely share this, send this link out, get it out there, as our producer, Sister Shana Joy, has reminded us to do. All praises due to Allah. But let's get down to the actual facts. Actual facts, because we come with receipts. We come with receipts on NationTown TV. First and foremost, they have a saying in law, in legalese, that's pretty clear. Shout out to Brother Hakeem. I see you, brother. Thank you for your support, dear brother. We love you, dear brother. But we have legal terminology that's very important, where they say that something, that a case should be considered moot or dead on its face, which means exactly what it sounds. That means if somebody claims something, like that brother that was that was supposedly representing himself, his whole argument was dead on his face, because he didn't even claim that wasn't him on the video. He didn't even claim that his son was lying when he said that he stabbed him. He didn't even claim against that. So his argument was dead on his face. And the argument of critical race theory is dead on its face because of the name itself. Critical race. Say it with me now. Theory. 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 Now, to every Aboriginal person on this earth, It don't matter what corner of this earth you live on, but especially if you in the hills of North America. For somebody to call your struggle and your sojourn, not just your ancestors, but what you're going through right now, a theory is disrespectful and it nullifies the argument on its face for either side. For either side. Now, brother earlier today tried to argue with me over, oh, well, when they say theory, he's obviously a brother that didn't drink the Kool-Aid, the liberal Democratic Party Kool-Aid. Oh, when they say theory, they don't mean the colloquial meaning of theory. First of all, there is no colloquial meaning of theory. It's a very legal term that has a very clear definition. And in the Nation of Islam, we're taught by this beautiful man, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, to go to the root of words, because long before this Caucasian destroyed and deceived you and I, he destroyed and deceived the language, as it is in our lessons. But he said that theory in this context means, oh, scientific theory. Well, we're going to break down why that is a lie. Or just not factual, I should say. But there's nothing theoretical about the sojourn of our people. Let's run down it. Last week we did a credit check. Let's go through the credit check again. Let's go through the background check real quick. There's no theory to this. This all happened. The slave making process, the buck breaking process, the holes of slave ships, the whips on our back. That's not even an illustration. That's an actual photograph. The maiming, the torture, the terrorism. Come on, man. There is no theory to this. There's nothing to theorize. The physical, the mental, the psychological, the biological attacks, Tuskegee, the whole nine. And even to this day, they murdering us in cold blood in the streets. There is no theory to it. But let's be clear. Let's come with the receipts, shall we? Let's deal with the fact. Let's deal with that idea that the brother tried to throw out there that, okay, it's about a scientific theory, which only deals with facts. He was wrong on that. Science always deals with hypothesis and observation first. And then it goes and it continues to observe facts from the outside looking in, and then ask itself, this is the scientific process we learned in like the fourth grade, it asks itself, does the hypothesis hold up to the observed evidence? Let me show you some receipts. All praise is due to Allah. Shout out to everybody chiming in. Hit us up with your questions and comments. Let's start off with this, because this is the brother basically was saying. What do we mean by theory and science? You see that word I got circled at the bottom? That's hypotheses, the plural of hypothesis, which means what you think in the beginning of your research, what you think is going to be the outcome of your research. See, there's nothing to think or to believe or to say or to hope. All these little weak words, hope, think, opinion, believe, hypothesis, none of that counts when you start dealing with critical race theory. Because it's not theory at all. It's critical race fact. Let's keep going. Now, this is dealing with the definition of the word theory itself. Now, we dealt with science. Let's talk about mathematics. Mathematics is Islam. Islam is mathematics. It stands true. It can always be proven in no limit of time. Mathematics, the collection of propositions. See, there it is. To illustrate the principles of a certain proposition. There are no propositions to the critical race problem in the hills of North America. But let me go all the way to where we should always go with this bastardized, grafted English language. You got to go to the etymology, which is the root of the word. If you can see down there at the bottom, first at the top, it points out that the origin is a Greek word, theoros, or theoria, late 16th century, denoting a mental scheme, pay attention, of something to be done. to be done via late Latin from Greek theoria, which means contemplation, speculation. Speculation. There's nothing to think about. There's no speculation to our sojourn in the wilderness of North America. I don't have to speculate on Black Wall Street. I don't have to speculate on the Tuskegee. I don't have to speculate on Sandra Bland. Speculate on Trayvon. Speculate on any of this. I don't have to speculate on 300 years of the worst form of chattel slavery, really the only true form of chattel slavery that happened here on the Western Hemisphere. And it happened all the way from the shores of Virginia, all the way to actually higher than that, all the way up to New York, all the way down to South America. I don't have to speculate, people. The epigenetics of it is still in my bloodline. Do you know what epigenetic trauma is? Epigenetic trauma is when something happens to your forefathers. And if it's re-stimulated in you, it's already in your genetics, which causes a problem, which causes you to hate yourself, causes you to hate your brother. That is in us, man. You can't go through things like this and think it's only going to hurt this brother right here. You think he went to his grave and he took those scars with him? You think he didn't pass those scars down? You think this brother and his family didn't pass that trauma down? Now, that's something that you can research. Epigenetic trauma. It's real. It does not need to be theorized. It cannot be theorized. Now, hold on, Brother Landon. Hold on, brother. I feel you on that. But, brother, you called it a myth. You call critical race theory a myth. You might not agree with it. You might think it's not cool, bro, but you called it a myth. Yes, I did, sir. Or ma'am, whoever you may be. Shout out to everybody chiming in. I see you. All praises due to Allah. Brother Hakeem says teach. Yes, sir. Brother 99 says terror is him. That's his other name. All praises due to Allah. That's right. Problem 13. It stands true. Proven in no limit of time. Brother K Real, all praises due to Allah. Brother said facts. Yes, sir. So why do I call it a myth? Oh, let's get into it. Only with receipts. No opinions. No theory. Just a couple of receipts. Let's get into myth. Pay attention now. Myth is a traditional story, especially one concerning the early history of a people or explaining some natural or social phenomenon. Let's read that again. Traditional story. Whose story? Especially one concerning the early history of a people. Which people? Or explaining some natural or social phenomenon. That's exactly what critical race theory is. It is a myth, man. It ain't even worth giving any real thought. Let's go deep. Let's go deep on this. Because this is an argument, because we're gonna get to why this has become an argument. Because there's a smoking gun as to why this is even in the news. Some of y'all, we are so desperate for nearness to Pharaoh, to our Caucasian friends in their world. You know, I don't know. We got brothers watching right now, and sisters watching. Sisters can relate. Do you remember your first crush? Your first crush that you actually knew, like not like a celebrity or nothing, but just your first crush that you knew, you went to school with, or you lived in your neighborhood or whatever. How did you feel? How did you feel in your stomach when they just glanced in your direction? And they just glanced. Even if they didn't say nothing, they just looked at you, bow, and then looked away. Oh man, it went straight to your soul, didn't it? You probably tossed and turned that night thinking about, man, she looked at me today. For the sisters, he looked at me today. He said, excuse me today. He bumped into me today. I touched him today. See, when you went in love with somebody or so infatuated with somebody, all they got to do is just glance in your direction. And you get all warm and fuzzy inside. And that's what we do with this Caucasian in his world. So some people think just the argument of critical race theory is It's progress. Oh, because we finally talking about it when it's actually regress. Because what the Caucasian is saying on one end, there's a deeper meaning for it, but on one end, he's saying we shouldn't even talk about it. We shouldn't even talk about the history of the full history of America. We should be able to cherry pick the history of America as long as it paints American history in a bright and pristine light. But let's go deeper. Let's go deeper. Because we have to deal with this word right here. Because, like I said on Facebook, I said that it's not critical race theory, it is actually critical race facts. Critical race facts. What is the definition of, or better yet, the etymology, the root of facts? Please make sure, people, if you don't do nothing else in this world, please make sure that when you're looking up a word, always get down to the etymology. That'll change the way you see the whole word because that's what the word really is. Just like some of you are watching right now, before I get into this etymology of facts, some of you are watching right now. You may go by a certain name that's more original, or you may be blessed to have been given a name by your parents that's more original. But if you're in the Western Hemisphere, whether it be Europe or America, you don't have to go that far back on your bloodline where somebody that's as black as you are or as aboriginal as you are got a name that don't match your skin and don't match your culture. It's some Johnsons that's watching us right now. It's some Smiths watching. That's all right. That's all right. You looking at somebody that used to call himself Collins. That's all right. So if we are called by a name that's not really us, trust me, the word has a definition that's not really true to that word if you go down to the etymology. So let's get to the etymology real quick. Get to the etymology of the word facts. Late 15th century, from Latin factum, neuter past participle of facere, which means to do. To do, the original sense was an act. Check this out. Later, a crime. Surviving in the phrase before or after the fact. So the word fact, ladies and gentlemen, fits what we're saying here more than it fits in any other context. Because it was also originally used to be a synonym of the word crime or something that was done. That's what makes a thing a fact, is that it's so real because it was really done. It really exists. It's real. You can touch it. You can look at it. It can be proven, like we said from our lessons, in no limit of time. So that's what a fact is. But going back to that supreme wisdom lesson that I mentioned, which is supreme lesson number 1, so supreme Muslim lesson, lost found Muslim lesson number 1, question number 4, which can be found in our supreme wisdom lessons. But it talks about in that lesson how we ran the Caucasian over the Arabian desert, 2,200 miles. And then it points out that we took everything from this devil as we ran him across that desert. We took everything except for the language, which means that the first victim of the Caucasian in his world was the language. It wasn't a black man. It wasn't a brown man. It wasn't a native man. It was the language. So when you're dealing with any language, particularly the English language, you're dealing with a language that was raped long before your forefathers were raped. Buck broken long before any of your forefathers was buck broken. He enslaved the language long before he enslaved you. So you got to be very careful with this language. Let me give you an example. First and foremost, in legal terms, understand they got something called legalese. And in legalese, a lawyer, when they're drawn up, or a paralegal, following the instructions of a lawyer, will put a word in a contract or put a word in a court complaint that leaves things up to interpretation or manipulation. Remember that before we get out of here. It leaves it up to manipulation and interpretation. Shout out to everybody chiming in. Hit us up Hit us with your thumbs up and all that good stuff. Hit us with the like. Make sure you get this message out there. Hit us up on NationTownStore.com. We see you. Brother Muslim says you're teaching good. Brother Minister Landon X, all praises due to Allah. All praises due to Allah. Brother 99 says in your possession, lessons are blessings. I know that's right. All praises are due to Allah. But let's look at this. Let's look at this. Here's the thing about critical race facts, or better yet, critical race, as they call it, theory. As they're arguing it, the main thing that they're centering it around is it being taught in schools. Now, it kind of mutated into that argument. It didn't start off that way. It didn't start off about schools. Remember, it's a legal argument for the sake of law. It started on college campuses. It started in college classrooms, but now it's become, now the question is, should we even talk about it? Should we even talk about slavery in the way that we've been doing it in front of 8-year-olds and 9-year-olds? Think about the fact that right now you have schools that allow LGBTQ cross-dressers to come into the school and teach kindergartners and and teach them bedtime and story time stories. And we're arguing whether or not your child in a public school or otherwise should be taught the true history of the United States of America. Well, let's just imagine for a minute, dear family, that the people that are against critical race theory, as it's being argued on your favorite news channel, let's say the people that are against critical race theory were successful and they got it taken out of school. They got the true history of slavery taken out of schools. They got, all of the freedom fighters that they talk about in school. They got it out of schools. You know what? You would hardly be able to tell the difference, because the way critical race theory is taught right now, and in my entire lifetime and prior to my lifetime, has always been insufficient. First of all, they teach our history from slavery on up. The average child, black, white, polka dot, red, yellow, starburst, whatever, zigzag, whatever their color is, the average child in the Western Hemisphere goes to school believing that the history of the black man started on a slave plantation. Because you never hear about Mansa Musa, just as an example. You never hear about Brother Hannibal, who went over a mountain, went to war, and went over a mountain with his army on top of an elephant. You never hear about this. Never hear about this. You never even really hear about Shaka Zulu. There are the American, the United States, and the British military, the biggest militaries in the world, use strategies that derive from Shaka Zulu, that derive from Zulu warriors. It's even used in sports. The position in football of American football of a safety came from a military concept of Shaka Zulu. They had something called a bull formation, where they made the opposition to think in the field of battle that they had been successful. But then there were people on the outside, on the perimeters, like a safety, just back there waiting on them to get cocky and think that they won the war. And then when it's almost over and there's only 5 or 6 of them left in that battle, those safeties, so to speak, come in with their spears and they put an end to them. There are military strategies that work the same way. Make them think they won the battle so that we can win the war. That comes from Shaka Zulu. These type of things are not taught to children. So we're sitting up here fighting and scrounging and arguing on MSNBC for something that has been largely insufficient anyway. Do you know that schools in America don't even teach Martin Luther King right? Y'all didn't hear me. Y'all ain't hearing me on Nation TV. They don't even teach. Dr. Martin Luther King died on 2 concepts. He was murdered, excuse me, please forgive me. He took a bullet that went up through his jaw and shattered basically all of his inner nodes from his nose on down. So please be careful with that ridiculous rumor that, oh, he didn't die from the gunshot. He died from somebody suffocating him. My thing is, what difference does it make? He was murdered. Does it make you feel better that he had a pillow over his face than a bullet in his jaw? I don't understand. But he was murdered not because he had a dream. He was murdered because he woke up and started planning on economic development in opposition to the Vietnam War. Almost none of us were taught that unless you went to a Afrocentric private school. You were not taught that about Dr. King. You thought he had a dream and then took a bullet, and that's the end of the story. Roll credits. Am I lying? That's what you thought. So they don't even teach Dr. King right. And then they lie to our children and tell them that Dr. King is he's the prototype black leader. If you want to be if you want to be a leader in the black community, be Dr. King. The same Dr. King that we shot. Boy, I tell you. But pay attention. We ain't gonna be on long. We do intend to be on strong. Shout out to everybody chiming in. We see you. Keep showing us love. I'm gonna try to superimpose as many comments as I can, a new feature that we're able to do. But I had to break down those words, those etymologies, because like the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said at a recent believers meeting that's actually on YouTube after the Savior's Day this past year, our first virtual Savior's Day, he pointed out as he sat there and schooled us on the importance of acknowledging Master Fard Muhammad even in prayer. He made it clear that words matter. Words matter. We running around talking about Black Lives Matter. Words matter. And I'm going to tell you something that's really sad about this whole situation. Like I said, CRT, critical race theory, on its face is insufficient. But many black people feel loyal to it. We feel like we have to fight it. I hate it when our open enemy creates a battle for us to fight. It's no different from there's so many Crispus addicts still running around here. Shout out to our beloved brother, Kwame Ture, who famously said it was a lecture he was doing at some rally back in the 70s. I believe it was the 70s or late 60s. He said, Crispus Attucks was the first man to die for America in the Revolutionary War. And then the whole crowd, he probably had about 5,000 people in front of him. They just went crazy. They're like, yeah, Crispus Attucks. And then he followed that up by saying, and he was a damn fool. And I'm telling you, may Allah be pleased with Kwame Ture. We still got a lot of Crispus Attucks running around here where we're the first to run into the battlefield and fight for these snuffleupagus, imaginary, mythical battles that don't even need to be fought. Let me give you an example. Because when I see this whole argument of critical race theory, I just want you to use your imagination. Just imagine for a minute that you captured a people and then you fed them just scraps. You fed them something that you wouldn't even dream of eating. But it's the only thing you fed them. And you fed them this for, say, 300 years. After them eating this diet of foul food for 300 years, they might start to develop an acquired taste for it. They might even learn how to cook it in a way that makes it taste at least edible. And after 300 years, nearly, 30 generations, or 10 generations, I should say, if you're judging generations at a 30-year mark. After 10 generations of feeding somebody this scrap of a food, they'll not only develop a liking for it, but they'll almost become addicted to it. And if you come behind that 300 years later and then try to tell them to stop eating those scraps, that those scraps are bad for them, they're no good for them, they should leave it where they see it. In fact, if they see it, they should set it on fire, they should throw it in the trash. They'll look at you like you crazy and say, boy, you must be crazy. I love my scraps. I mean, it's kind of like, I don't know, maybe it matches or not, but it's kind of like how we feel about how people feel about this. When you try to explain to somebody that this is a terrible beast to eat, you try to even point out that it's mentioned in the Bible several times, not once, not twice, several times, to leave this beast alone. But the reason why they're so loyal to it is because it's the only thing. Remember the epigenetic trauma. It's the only thing they were allowed to eat. The only meat that they were able to eat in abundance for 300 years. And politically today, we're the same way. Sociologically, we're the same way. Psychologically, we're the same way. When we just get scraps from our open enemies, psychologically or politically, when we come and try to say, you know what, that's not even for you, man, put that up. That's bad for you, actually. Our people don't understand it. So some of you that are watching this and may watch this, you may disagree just on the fact that you're addicted to that hog. I mean, that BS theory. But let's keep going. Shout out to everybody chiming in. I see you. All praises due to Allah. Brother Muslim says, that's right, teach Brother Landon next. Brother 99 says, good build, all praises due to Allah. That poison animal, absolutely. That khanzir, as described in the Holy Quran, absolutely, all praises due to Allah. Shout out to everybody chiming in. Make sure y'all show us some love via Cash App. Show us some love on NationTownStore.com. However you choose to do so, 100% independent black platform. All praises are due to Allah. But let's keep going. We so used to these scraps, and then what that does is that clears the way for something that's very troubling lately. And that's the idea of this right there. What's wrong with this picture? Now, some of y'all might look at this and say, what's right about it? And listen, let me be clear, man. I don't have nothing. Let me say this. I gotta point this out. I tell people this ever so often, and I'm gonna repeat it here. I think this is probably the first time. I say it all the time, just in discussions. I don't think I ever pointed this out. It's just my opinion. The opinions that you're about to hear are not necessarily the opinions of the Nation of Islam and the Honorable Mr. Farrakhan. But let me say this. There's a scene on the movie Malcolm X that actually happened almost verbatim, according to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, because it was the minister who was one of the ministers that was with Malcolm when it happened. There's a scene where Malcolm is going to speak at Harvard College, I believe Harvard University, and a white girl runs up to him. She says, "Oh, Malcolm, I love what you're doing. I believe everything that you're saying. You know, I understand that my people have done such terrible things to your people. I just want to know, is there anything that you can do, that I can do to help your cause and help you out?" And then Malcolm, portrayed by our brother Denzel Washington, looked her right in the eye and said, "No," and kept on moving. Hilarious scene. Hilarious. Especially the look on her face after he walked off with the brothers. And the minister was actually with him, according to what the minister mentioned in one of his lectures. And he didn't even mention the movie. He just described that moment, and that's how I knew the minister had to be there, because and the actual lecture took place before the movie was released. So that's how I know the minister was there. But Malcolm just said no. I slightly disagree with Malcolm. Because yes, Caucasians can help us. But they can't help us by being up under us or with us or around us. If they believe in our cause, they need to take that belief in our cause and take it to their own people. Don't come to us all up in our face calling yourself an ally. That's the issue that I have right now is this idea of allyship that's going on. Because this is where this comes from. That's why this argument is getting so much attention, which really is hypocritical and ironic because one of the elements of critical race theory is what I mentioned before, the interest convergence, where it says white people don't even care about black people unless they have some kind of interest that they can benefit from while we somewhat benefit from it. So that just proves when you see these allies, when you see them talking about black, first of all, if you drive through a black neighborhood that's being gentrified and you know it's being gentrified and you see a Black Lives Matter flag outside of it, I guarantee you that's the Caucasian gentrified that's living there. I guarantee you. Trust me on that. But anyway, this allyship is causing a problem. And this allyship is the reason why when we have meetings in the Nation of Islam, we don't invite Caucasians. Because we know, the minister said it himself, if he had started inviting white people into the mosque in the Nation of Islam, there would be no room for us. Because some of them are just genuinely interested. They're genuinely nosy. You know, they like to know, even if they disagree. But when they get involved, things get murky and things get muddy. So we got to be real careful with allyship. I know it warms your heart to see what you believe is a good white man and a good white woman. And I do believe that they exist somewhere. Like that old song on Wizard of Oz. Somewhere over the rainbow. They somewhere out there. I'm just not looking for them. But you can keep looking for them. But anyway, let's go further. Here's another problem I have with critical race theory. Some of y'all might be watching this and you still ain't feeling what I'm saying. That's fine. Just hear me out. But sometimes you got to kind of take your point and put it in another context for people to understand it. Now, I'm not making light of either one of these issues I'm about to mention. But let me show you how theory looks so terrible after the words critical and race as it pertains to the history of America. What if somebody came up with something called critical rape theory? Telling a woman that her rape is theoretical. It's something to study its merits or what it is and what it's not. That theoretically her pants were pulled down forcefully, and theoretically she was forced to engage in some type of sexual act or male. It happens to men too, and not just in prison. How disrespectful would that be to put that word theory right after rape when rape is something that you cannot theorize? It either happened or damn it didn't. What about critical real estate theory? Now this is for my yuppies out here. These are for my Caucasians that really don't care about politics or whatever. They just got their Tesla, they got their their earbuds, their bros. They're going on their trips. They're playing golf. They're working on their portfolios. You know what I mean? What if somebody came up with critical real estate theory? Kind of like what Caucasians did to the Native American family when they came here. If somebody just pulled eminent domain on your $5.5 million house in Phoenix, Brad, and they just pulled up on Brad and said, you know what? Theoretically, you have a deed on this property. Theoretically. See, they would interrupt you right there. Hold on, there's no theoretical nature to my deed. In fact, it's right here, buddy. That's what they would say. I guarantee you, 80% chance they're gonna say buddy right after they say that. Buddy, it's not theoretical, it's real. You see that? That's my name, that's the lot number, that's the so. That's my bank, whoop-de-whoop. They would go through the whole process and prove to you there's nothing theoretical. And remember, the etymology of the word theoretical means speculation. The etymologic definition of a word is not debatable. That means that is the reality of it, the root of it, not the branch of it. Branches waver in the wind and they can snap. But the roots of a tree, they pay people good money to come and uproot a tree. You got to pay a company a lot more to cut a tree down. I mean, to uproot a tree than to just cut it down, because they'll cut it down and leave the stump there because it's so difficult to go into the ground. You got to take out a swimming pool chunk, even for a mid-sized tree, a swimming pool sized chunk of the earth to completely remove the roots. So the root of a word is the true definition. Speculation. There's no speculation once a property is purchased. There's no speculation once a woman, man, or child is raped. Do you understand what I'm talking about? All praises due to Allah. I hope you do. I hope you do. I hope you ain't that slow. I hope you ain't that slow. But now I got the smoking gun. Before we get out of here, here's the smoking gun. That proves my point that we got to be careful with words. It's not even my point. It's the point of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, as I mentioned before, that words matter. Because remember what I said earlier, in legalese, they will use words in order for future interpretation and manipulation, especially in contracts. This is why your favorite rapper last album probably sold 5 million copies. And as far as royalties are concerned, they probably made about $3,500 off of 5 million copies, because there's words that are left for interpretation and manipulation. And they were just so happy to get a little advance and to be on the cover of a magazine and to have a couple of groupies around them, that they went ahead and they was half out their mind anyway because they was hot. So they went ahead and signed that contract. So they made $3,500 off of a 5 times platinum album that's been streamed a quadrillion times on Tidal and Spotify. And they gotta do 3 shows a week just to keep up with the lifestyle that they need. It's because of that legalese and that 30-page contract that leaves it open for interpretation and manipulation. This is why it's so important. Because when you leave that word theory and critical race theory, that means that when it comes to real topics like, I don't know, reparations, I'm going to say that again. When it comes to real topics, factual topics like reparations, your open enemy, now that he got you arguing over the theoretical critical race experience of you and your ancestors, now that that's a reality in your head and it's a theory, the theory is a reality. It's an argument. It's something that's based on a back and forth argument on a talk show or something. Now that he's made it an argument, he's taking it from being a fact up here to being an argument down here, being debatable. Now that he's made it debatable, he can do things like this. Check this out. Your president, the 46th president of the United States, as soon as he was elected, he said, I don't know about reparations, but here's what I do. I'm going to study reparations as Congress considers a bill. Pay attention to the key word. Remember what the minister said now. Come on now. Very brilliant man he is. Words matter. Biden backs studying reparations as Congress considers a bill. Speaking of bills, I bet you I know every adult that's watching this, you got bills. I ain't talking about legislative bills. You got bills. You got people sending letters, calling your house, calling your phone, saying, listen, man, we gave you that car. You know this dude, pay that note. Listen, man, we approved you on that house loan. We gave you the loan. Now it's time to pay the note. Listen, bro, we approved you on that lease. You living in the apartment. Now it's time to pay. Rent's due, right? Right. Bills. It ain't no interpretation. You don't never hear a landlord say, you know what? The first is coming up. I'm going to study and consider if you owe me rent this month. You ain't never heard the phone company say, we're going to study and consider maybe if you owe what's due on your phone bill. No. They send you a invoice. which factually breaks down the usage of that phone, or that factually represents the lease that you signed, and the fact that the 30-day period of the month is over, so therefore it's time to pay your rent cycle again. There is no studying, there is no consideration, there is no speculation. But when you let this devil play with the words, the same language that we left him with when we drove him into the hillsides and caves of Europe, when you let him keep playing with them damn words, he will play with them. And he'll get you to play like a child. You know, sometimes with babies, we give them a little toy to play with just to keep them occupied. Huh? And you can keep them occupied. That means you can keep giving them toys. You can keep pacifying them so you can play with them in other ways. So you can have your way in other ways. Huh? So that's what Biden is doing. That's what that is. We allowed him to study and play around with reparations because we over here occupied with something as foolish as critical race theory. So that, my friend, is why you don't let them play with the words. And they playing with words even deeper than that. Because like I said, the brother earlier on Facebook tried to argue with me about what theory means. So I had to go to the root. But they will even go into the root and try to manipulate the root. For example, in another topic, they playing around with what gender means. Look at this. This is an updated definition that I found of the word gender. Either of the two sexes, male and female, especially when considered with reference to social and cultural differences rather than biological. Hold on. You see that finesse right there, that finesse move? This new definition, this new age, this is why you can't trust definition. You got to go to the root. This new definition is trying to tell you that really gender is about cultural differences rather than biological ones. But here's where the truth lies. Either go into, with the English language, either go into the etymology or jump into them prefixes and suffixes. Because most of the English language comes from older languages like Greek and Latin. And almost all of the prefixes and suffixes that are used in words in the English language reach back to real definitions. Gen in any word always has something to do with the production of or something being born. So at the time of your biological birth, or just your biological conception, by the grace of Almighty God, Allah, very soon me and my wife are going to go and find out what the gender of our yet to be born child is. That's because it's already been decided by God a long time ago. Before she even knew she was pregnant, it was decided. Because gen deals with the birth of something, the production of a thing. Do you understand? But they already playing with the words. Why? Because we let them. And I'm going to close with this, family. Shout out to everybody chiming in. I see you. The reason why you got to get to the root of things, and the reason why the minister said words matter, family, is because when you let people start playing with the words, it has a trickle-down effect. It has a real trickle-down effect that affects our babies. It affects our children. Some of us are wondering why our children struggle like they do in school, why our children struggle with their self-esteem and they struggle in certain situations. Because look at the battles, the silly little battles that we fight. Somebody can tell us that, hey, you know what? Your history is a theory. Your human existence. To me, calling critical race theory a theory is this insulting that's saying as the 3/5 compromise, saying that the black man and woman is 3/5 of a human being. But when you let them play them games, here's the product that you get. I want you to pay attention to this without throwing up. But pay attention. When you let them play with that language, this is what you get.
Which doll is the black doll? And which one is the white doll?
That one.
Which doll is the pretty doll? Which doll is the nice doll? Which doll is the bad doll? Which doll is the nice doll? And which doll is the bad doll? And why is that doll pretty?
Because he's white and he has 2 eyes.
Which doll is the ugly doll? Why is that doll ugly?
Because he's black.
Which doll looks most like you?
Like me.
Yeah, which one looks like you?
And that one.
Okay.
That doll.
I know, it's sickening. It's sickening. They did the doll test way back in the 60s or 70s, and then they renewed it, I believe, about 10, 15 years ago, and that's what you just saw. That's that controversial doll test where they just put a black doll and a white doll, and the results of the original doll test were just as sad and sickening. In fact, this was NBC. I'm not sure of which network was responsible for the first doll test. I think it might have been NBC as well, but the results were actually worse on the newer one. Actually worse. But that's what happens. Whenever you send a child to a school that's teaching them that their history is just a theory, that their history is just a theory, and then it only starts from slavery on down, but then the history of white America and white people throughout the world is taught as heroic fact. Whenever that happens, that's the result. You get children. It's deeper than just skin color. And none of those children, I guarantee you, none of them were taught directly by their black parents. Son, daughter, black is bad, black is ugly, black is evil, white is good. None of them were taught that directly. Come on, man. Come on, man. I mean, how many of those black children looked so-called biracial? None of them. So none of them were taught directly to hate themselves. Of course not. Of course not. But it's those little subtle things like arguing about whether or not our history should be called a theory. Children are smarter than we think they are. But we don't like to just bring bad news on NationTown TV. We also want to give you an alternative, because you don't have to send your child to a school that calls Asiatic Aboriginal history theoretical. There are always an alternative to deal with. There's always other ways to teach our children, to teach our people, to bring them up. There's a better way to do everything. Stop taking the scraps. Stop eating the scraps that you're given. There's always more where those scraps came from. There's always a better part of that beast that you're eating. There's always a better animal to eat. There's always a better food or vegetable to eat. There's always something better out there. And I'm going to close this episode with some words from the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, starting with what I like to call the Black Man's Bible, message to the black man. Speaking of education, he makes it clear: make America know her sins. The doom of America approaches, and there are many people who do not really know why. There are also many who would not like to know. As I've always said, truth hurts, especially the guilty. It is the express purpose of the coming of God, whose proper name is Allah, to make manifest the sins of a people who he would destroy, justifying his destruction of that people. He goes on further to say, today, America's doom is set like a die. She cannot escape. It is impossible for her to escape. For her to escape would classify the prophets of God and God himself as predicting lies. Good God Almighty. When God appeared to me in the person of Master Fard Muhammad, to whom praises are due forever, in 1931 in Detroit, he said that America was his number one enemy on his list for destruction. I find it interesting that Master Fard Muhammad got a list. Hello, somebody. Hello, somebody. And then in his illustrious book, The Fall of America, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad went even further. Let me pull that up for you. Again, shout out to everybody chiming in. We sincerely appreciate your support. Sincerely. The messenger says, Allah God has come to take over and to guide another people into setting up a better educational system for the people of whom he himself is the head. And we all get guidance from him. As Daniel said in his prophecy, God will set up a kingdom and he will not leave it into the hands of others, but he himself will guide it. But first, he must remove all the rubbish of this white man's world education system. He discards America's educational system as we discard rubbish to be burned up. So, ladies and gentlemen, dear brothers and sisters, instead of eating scraps and taking sociological, psychological, and political scraps, throw it away like rubbish, like the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said. Shout out to everybody chiming in. I appreciate y'all touching in and tapping in with me. All praises due to Allah. Brother 99 says, why does black licorice taste the worst? I know that's right. All praises due to Allah. Says UOI, all praises due to Allah. All praises due to Allah. I like this one. Allahship, all lies and ish. All praises due to Allah. All praises due to Allah, family. I appreciate y'all tapping in with us. We're going to leave y'all as we greeted y'all in the words of peace. We said in the Arabic language, man, I'm just falling in love with the YouTube family. We're going to continue. Also, this weekend, be on the lookout. We might do another episode of Revolutionary Relationships with our beloved executive producer and co-host, Sister Shauna Joy. Look out for it. You may or may not see it. If you don't see it, it ain't my fault. It's hers. But all praise due to Allah. And hey, that's where the sweater come from. Also, the brother asked earlier about the sweatshirts. This particular sweatshirt is not currently available on NationTownStore.com. I just want to clarify that. I do have other black hoodies that are available on NationTownStore.com. This was actually a fundraiser for Muhammad University of Islam here in Los Angeles, who will be doing their graduation ceremony very soon. But I just realized that I forgot which hoodie I actually had on, but all praise due to Allah. But I'm going to try to broadcast. If these are still available in the next episode, if it be the will of Allah, I will give you information on how to get a hoodie such as this. But the hat and some of the other hoodies that we have are available. So I promise I'm going to leave you as I greet you with the words of peace. Assalamu alaikum.
I was told to deliver this message.